Good evening, everybody. Live stream has started, so we'll begin the meeting. There's no fire. Oh, I usually introduce myself. For those who don't know me, I'm Pat Edwards, Chair of the Planning Committee. There's no fire alarm planned for this evening. Should the alarm sound, please leave via the nearest available emergency exit. The two exits are through the glass door behind you to my left and through the double doors onto the riverside behind there. Don't use the exit to the back at my right, as access is currently restricted by the works outside. Please meet at Tower House car park. Members of the public are welcome to make their own recordings of the meeting using whatever non-disruptive methods they think are suitable. I would like to remind everybody present at the meeting that it's being minuted, recorded, filmed and made available to view in live and archive form via the Council's website. If you're seated in the public gallery, it's possible the cameras may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, it's recommended you make a member of staff aware who can direct you to where to sit. The Westgate Gardens on the riverside will be locked, so members of the public must leave the Guildhall by the side exit behind the glass door. Can I have any apologies, John?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Robert Jones, Ian Stockley and Beth Forrester.
And any substitutes, please.
Councillor Rachel Carnack is substitute for Councillor Jones.
Thank you. We can move on to declarations of interest by councillors or officers. John, could you read out the generic declaration of interests on behalf of all members and any declarations received in advance? Thank you.
All or some councillors may have received correspondence from or spoken with applicants, agents, supporters or objectors, and some of the public speakers may also be known to members of the committee due to their work as councillors. Neither circumstance prevents councillors from participating in the meeting. However, any councillor who considers that they do not have an open mind in respect of any item on the agenda should not participate in the meeting when the relevant item is to be discussed. And in terms of declaration received in advance, Councillor Carnack has noted predetermined and will speak before the open discussion but leave.
Thank you. Sorry. There are going to be 6 public speakers tonight who will be heard immediately after the officer's presentation under each relevant item. Sorry, Councillor Thomas, did you want to make a declaration?
Yes, please, Chair. On item 7, speaking for me and Councillor Carnack, on item 7, because we know the applicant, we work as a team together, it just makes sense for us both to leave the meeting on that one and then we'll come back in. Thank you.
Thank you, that's fine. Thank you very much. Where was I? Public speakers. There are 6 public speakers tonight who will be heard immediately after the officer's presentation under each relevant item. Please can we confirm the minutes of the meetings of Planning Committee on the 29th of April 2025 and 13th of May 2025. We could confirm these by general assent if you're happy. Thank you very much. They are confirmed by general assent. Thank you. Let's move on to number 6, application number CA 25 00181 86A Chesfield Road, Chesfield, CT5 3LT. Could I ask Christian de Grusa to introduce the report? Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. So this application proposes 5 detached 2-storey dwellings with associated car barns following the demolition of an existing dwelling. So the site is located in Chesfield and comprises a single-storey detached dwelling. At present, it's sited within a substantial garden plot whilst located behind number 88 Chesfield Road, a Grade 2 listed building. The site is also bound by the Chesfield Conservation Area. So both of these constraints are outlined on the site location plan here. I hope that's clear to members. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play a couple of videos now just to give members sort of an appreciation for the context of the site. Just to have an idea of where we're going. The first video would be stood here where the existing access is, venturing into the application site. Then we'll be going sort of clockwise within the site itself. And then the second video I'm going to play is stood along Chesfield Road here within the conservation area, heading southwards and then turning into Cherry Orchard here to the west. So this is the first video. Is that playing for members or is that? Oh, here we are. Is it? Oh, we're a bit. I think if I make bigger, it might.
Presentation. Top.
It's a bit jump start. Sorry about that, everyone. Yeah, so here we are just heading through into the driveway. And then just here is the grade 2 listed building. Just panning over there. And then eventually you will see the detached dwelling just emerging from the video. You just see it here in the background. If I just speed it along. May have to abandon.
You make it bigger though as well.
Look at it in full view. Yeah.
Keeps freezing there. Shall I just abandon it?
Just talk to them.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
So it's just sort of showing the context of how set back the dwelling is from the highway. I think is the picture I'm trying to convey here. So if you remember, it was quite a long driveway that we were accessing. I think that was substantiated by the block plan as well. Effectively, you've got a dwelling in the background there, and you know, as per the block plan, it is sited within quite a substantial garden plot. I think you can just make it out here. So just behind here, you do have the rear gardens of dwellings along Cherry Orchard. And then the listed building is just here to the left. And then there's dwellings just to the right here along Woodvale Avenue. There we are. Move to the next one. So yeah, as you can see, there's sort of quite thick vegetation along the shared boundaries of the neighbouring occupiers. And that's kind of corroborated when you view it from the street as well, notably Chesfield Road and Cherry Orchard as well. And I'll show that within the next video. Yeah, hopefully that gives a flavour of kind of the size of the application, its size, and sort of the modest scale of the existing dwelling. Hopefully we'll have more luck with this one. So this is me along Chesfield Road, heading southwards. The application site entrance to the existing dwelling is just here. Should pan to it. And then you have the listed building immediately to the left. As I mentioned previously, it is quite set back with vegetation along the front boundary, and that's sort of characteristic of this part of the conservation area. Excuse the finger as well. We'll be continuing to be heading southwards, and then we'll be turning right into Cherry Orchard just to the right here. If I speed it along. That's us looking back to the application site. You sort of the dwellings along this part of Chesfield Road are primarily hidden, particularly given their setback and the large plots of each respective dwelling. and that's sort of consistent as we head along to Cherry Orchard here to the right. So these are sort of the two main highways that sort of bound the neighbouring properties, with the application site just immediately behind. So as we're stood here, you have the application site behind this dwelling. So behind this one, you have the rear garden, and even further behind is the application site itself. So hopefully just to convey sort of the setback of the site that's been brought to you here today. And just here we have the proposed block plan. So this was the journey we sort of took previously, heading down here and then to the west. So it sort of shows the development consolidating the existing backland arrangement from that present dwelling. It does remain set back from the highway. So as such, the impact of the conservation area is considered to be limited. However, it is noted that the development would erode the openness of the site, which at present does form a positive part for the setting of the Grade 2 listed building, number 88 here. Nevertheless, given the degree of separation to be retained, the proposed landscaping buffer as well, along with the council being in presumption of sustainable development, on balance, it is considered that the public benefits from the scheme would outweigh this less than substantial harm identified to this particular heritage asset. And then, just for context, here we have the proposed elevation drawings. So, material palette of brick, white render, and hanging clay tiles. I hope this is clear to members as well. Thankfully, not a video this time. We have a photo from the rear garden of one of the nearest affected properties, number 3 Cherry Orchard. And as you can see, this was taken from their rear elevation, looking towards the application site. I've sort of marked that in red where we stood. And then we're looking northwards. The closest unit is Unit 3 here. And as you can see here, that separation distance is approximately 40 metres. And similarly, we have a photo taken from one of the adjacent neighbours. This is number 5, Cherry Orchard this time. Again, taken from their rear elevation, looking towards the site this time, and as marked on the plan here with a separation distance of approximately 24 metres. And coupled with the orientation of Unit 3, sort of positioned away from this occupier, it's considered that overall, coupled with the substantial separation distance from the previous neighbour, that there'd be no unacceptable increase in overlooking or a loss of privacy on this occasion. The recommendation is therefore to approve, subject to safeguarding conditions and a completion of a legal agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move to our speakers, and could I invite the first speaker, Stuart Neame, to come forward, an objector, and just to be very clear, you have 3 minutes.
Well, thank you very much for listening to me. I don't object to the principle of this development. I do object to the inclusion of plot 3 as it contravenes the council's policy DBE 3 regarding the privacy and amenity of neighbouring buildings. It has a large overlooking window in bedroom 2. We have a swimming pool and patio at the end of our garden, which would have this window directly overlooking just 10 metres away. The pool is 40 years old and was sited very carefully to maintain privacy. The rear ground floor of our house is completely glazed and is only 26 metres from plot 3. We are currently completely private, but would be directly overlooked straight into our rooms and onto our pool. We can't move the pool or change the house, and there is no room for screening. The existing shrubs and vegetation the other side of our fence are to be removed. We're told there are no overlooking windows. The houses are on average 50 metres away from adjoining properties, and there is 42 metres between our house and plot 3. This is not true. I paid a surveyor to assess the distance from my pool and patio to plot 3, and I measured from the rear of my ground floor to the boundary with a tape measure. The measurements are 10 metres from the overlooking window to the pool and 16.5 metres from my house to the boundary. 26.5 metres from my window to the overlooking window. so the 42 metres quoted was not correct. My measurements show the intense overlooking that will take place onto my previously private pool and into my private rooms. The developers may tell you that they mooted a plan for screening on their side, but any screening would be outside our control. There would be nothing to stop future residents reducing or removing it if it became intrusive. The planning officer may say the overlooking is minimal and should not be taken into account. That is not true. The overlooking is grossly intrusive and based on untrue measurements. There would no longer be any privacy to our pool or the rooms in our home. The inclusion of this house is far beyond acceptable, and the measurements you have before you of the 42 metres are not true. This plan has every appearance of not being prepared with any overlooking issues addressed to existing properties. And in the heritage statement, you will see a well-prepared alternative plan with no overlooking, and we wonder why this was not submitted. Thank you very much.
And now, please, may I ask Malcolm Neesham, also an objector, to come forward. And you also have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Malcolm Neesham. I live at 3 Cherry Orchard. Our property and rear garden backs on to the proposed development. Excuse me. Whilst we do not have any objection to development per se, our concern is the house on plot 3 of the plan. The situation of this house is at an angle directly facing our rear garden and rear of our house and very close to the boundary of our property. Currently, the line of sight is protected by 2 large conifer trees, which would give a good degree of privacy from the upper floor windows of the proposed property. Should either the developer or an incoming resident decide to remove them, which is highly likely, we would be totally exposed, overlooked, and suffer a huge loss of the privacy which we have enjoyed for the past 40 years. The original plan for this plot, for which you have a photograph, shows the house on block 3 being in a much less intrusive position, but has been subsequently changed to the current position on the latest plan as to our detriment. We feel that the house proposed in plot 3 is positioned in such a way that it is too close and is intrusive on our garden and property and our neighbour's property at 5 Cherry Orchard, and must be removed or repositioned in order to protect the privacy we currently enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, could I explain that Councillor Flanagan is unable to get here, so we're going to invite Stuart Neame to read Councillor Flanagan's statement. So Stuart, if you'd like to come back, but just bear in mind this is Councillor Flanagan's statement.
Right, well, he begins with thank you, Chair, and good evening, councillors. I've asked for this application to be brought before the committee for a number of reasons, not least the impact on the living conditions of neighbouring properties, and that's where I would like to focus. Point 16 on page 21 of the agenda states the first floor windows of this proposed dwelling will be located approximately 42 metres away from the rear elevations of these neighbouring properties, and there would be no unreasonable overlooking as a result of the development. However, by using the scale provided on page 16, we just need to be aware that the distance between the upstairs rear wall of Unit 3 and the glass-fronted downstairs room at 5 Cherry Orchard is nearer to 26 metres, placing the proposed development closer to existing properties. Residents who will be speaking shortly will expand on this using photos taken from their properties. At this distance, I would argue there is a greater possibility of existing properties being overlooked as a result of this development. Indeed, the previous plans presented for this proposed development had Unit 3 at a further distance away from properties in Cherry Orchard. This proposal brings it closer. Whilst it would be ideal for Unit 3 to be moved or removed from the application, councillors will note from page 16 that extra screening has been proposed by the applicant between Unit 3 and existing properties in Cherry Orchard. This can be seen from the highlighted V-green shape on the diagram. At the very least, I would ask the committee to include the strongest possible conditions to ensure that the line of trees shown on the same illustration, both existing trees and those proposed, are retained into the longer term without the strongest condition. There is always the risk that any future occupant of Unit 3 will cut back or at worst remove the trees from the rear garden, hence exacerbating the concern of overlooking into existing properties. This would apply as much to the existing fir trees as well as the 11 new trees listed on the right-hand side of page 16. Councillors, I am not suggesting the application be rejected outright, but what I am asking is for consideration to either remove Unit 3 from the proposed development for the reasons provided, or at the very least to ensure the strongest possible terms and conditions to protect the existing and proposed line of trees. And thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Just 1 second. We're just working out some of these distances. Just 1 second. And we'll then call the last speaker, which is the agent. But hold on a minute. Yeah, we'll try and clarify the discrepancy that appears maybe in the report. I'm not quite sure. We're just checking. But we'll do that after we've had our speaker, who is Aneki Bax, the agent. Sorry? Ansky, sorry. Sorry about that. I'm terrible at these kind of things. But anyway, welcome. Please, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. My name is Ansky Bax, representing the applicant. I present as both a local Canterbury resident and on behalf of James Clegg Architects in support of the application. The application seeks for the demolition of an unattractive bungalow and sees its replacement with 5 high-quality and well-designed family eco-homes, together with generous landscaping and green buffer zones to all boundaries. Full support is given by officers and all technical statutory consultees are fully satisfied with the application. The proposal for 5 family homes supports the desire to see an effective reuse of brownfield land on a site nearly 1.5 acres that is totally underutilised with just 1 bungalow. We have actively engaged upfront with the council through extensive pre-application discussions, gaining support from officers throughout for 5 dwellings, and proactively worked with taking on board feedback to deliver a sympathetic scheme. We have prepared a comprehensive application employing local consultants to deliver a sensitive proposal that responds to its context. In this sense, all notable trees and the setting of the nearby listed building will be protected. The design reflects local mock Tudor vernacular in Chesfield, which should be embraced, and incorporates eco-build credentials. The officer's report highlights the proposal safeguards all existing neighbouring amenity in terms of overlooking or loss of light, whereby the closest would be some 42 metres away, and most back-to-back properties would be over 50, well in excess of the 21 required. Furthermore, the site, as highlighted in the officer report, is very well screened by established hedgerows and trees to be kept and improved. We have taken on board comments made through the application stage, whereby the proposed bin stall to the road has been removed to within the site. We have also attempted to engage with a neighbour on alleged overlooking and went above and beyond in amending the scheme by removing a balcony and French doors to plot 3, and provided an extensive additional tree plan for maximum screening to the relevant boundary. These additional measures are all over and above what is required. The application before you constitutes sustainable development, where the proposal would deliver a demonstrable package of benefits chiefly of which is the provision of much needed family homes for the district, together with generous landscaping and biodiversity enhancements for local wildlife, and it is therefore respectfully asked that members grant the application in accordance with the officer recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Just give me 1 second about the clarification of the distances. Thank you. Right, we're just going to have some clarification of the discussion about distancing between the proposed houses and the current properties. Christian de Groot is going to give you a look at a plan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So it's noted that one of the objectors at the resident for number 3 Cherry Orchard referred to the distance between the rear elevation of their property and the rear elevation of the closest unit being approximately 42 metres. In my presentation prior, I referenced it as being approximately 40 metres. If you can see here on the plan, this is what I've measured, but it appears to be just an underestimation on my part. It was 42 if I just bring this line slightly closer to the rear elevation here. If you can kind of see it's set slightly back, so that accounts for that 2 metre discrepancy. And then with regards to number 5 Cherry Orchard, in a similar vein, the objector for this property referenced it being approximately 26 metres. I previously referred to it as approximately 24, but again, an underestimation on my part. Hopefully that clarifies matters.
Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to propose the officer's report on this one, which is Section 101 grant subject to legal agreement and safeguarding conditions. I'm going to propose this in order that the officer's report can be debated. And obviously, if members are looking to change or alter conditions, we can do that in the course of the debate. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Prentice, for the minutes. Thank you. Could I open this up for debate, please? Okay. Councillor Old and Councillor Dan Smith. Not the one you wanted to speak on. No.
Thank you, Chair. Clearly, the key issue about plot 3 and the distances is a key issue. And I just wonder if there was some confusion about discussions about measurements to the plot rather than to the rear windows of the plot 3. It might be a cause of some of the discrepancy as well. But my main issue I am seeking clarification on is the screening around plot 3, particularly on the southwest part. The temptation would be for any occupant of plot 3 to remove those trees to let in more light. And I'd be grateful for some advice, please, on what we might be able to do to provide protection for the existing residents so that the screening remains. Thank you.
Do you want to comment?
Well, yes, I think, I mean, the distances involved, so 26 metres and 20 and 42 metres would be sufficient without any tree screening. Where I say sufficient, generally that would be an accepted distance in planning terms. That the trees themselves, they're on the border of the conservation area, so some of them might actually be in the conservation area if they're not within the application site, but the ones in the application site won't be, so they won't be protected trees. In terms of whether we should be looking at a tree preservation order, I mean, I would say that because it's set so far back from the road that they don't have a wider visual amenity value, it'd be purely to protect privacy, and that wouldn't be a reason to make a tree preservation order on those trees. I mean, some of them might go, some of them might stay. You know, I take your point, but in reality, the distances are so not great, but they are sufficient that it wouldn't be justifiable to look to keep those trees for protection of privacy purposes.
Councillor Dan Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'll just go back to the point Simon's just made, and I wondered if a TPO may be possible, given that the residents of the new properties, given that 4 out of 5 of these don't seem to be an issue so far, that obviously there would be some amenity value of a significant tree there, so that may be something worth looking at, as well as to obviously the people in the nearby neighbours that are currently there. You're going to have 2 sets of people, the future people as well as the current people. The other point was again a clarification over distances. The agent, when he was speaking, mentioned this plot size was 1.5 acres. But I think on your plan it describes it as 0.49 hectares, which I think is considerably more than 1.5 acres. So I wondered if you could clarify the size of the plot and the various plots as well. Thank you.
Taking comments into account, we'll just move on. There's probably no comment to be made about that at the minute. Councillor Mackenzie. Councillor Naomi Smith. Keith, I've got you, and Rachel, I've got you.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, my question is very similar to Councillor Old's about the trees. Am I correct in understanding, even if you if you put a condition or something into the title deeds about that the trees have to remain, that it's very hard to enforce, because so it'd only be a TPO, and if the TPO's not, you can't put a TPO on these trees because they've not got the amenity value, so that the screening is a problem to this. It's just, I'm just trying to sort of, sorry, I'm a bit rambling with it. I don't mean to be. There's nothing that can guarantee that the trees would stay and give them screening. Am I correct in that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there is a landscaping condition. Again, the purpose of that is not to protect privacy, but to improve the appearance of the site. There's a landscaping condition which requires details of landscaping to be submitted and then approved by the council. So obviously what we can do is encourage the applicant to keep as many trees as possible, and to be honest with you, it's going to be in their interest to do that, unless the trees are going to block out light or be a threat to the building. So I think generally they're not going to want to rip out all the trees, I would expect, but you never know, and that will be part of the landscaping proposals that they'll submit to us for consideration.
So can I just come back? Could the neighbours, I mean, it looked like the photographs of their properties that they'd actually got, I think one of the chaps had got like a summer house right up to the end of his property. So they actually haven't got space to maybe plant their own screening without demolishing buildings and stuff. I mean, it does just seem, Because I know if I moved into this new house and I've got 2 great big conifers, the first thing I would do is get them chopped down because I can't bear conifers, you know, and that's, I just think we can't guarantee that trees being left there could ever stay there.
And Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Chair. I note from, well, I'm sympathetic to the people who have objected to this proposal, and I note that they're not objecting to the principle of development, they're objecting to this particular issue of overlooking. And I just wonder whether we should refer it back to the applicant and ask them to reconsider the orientation of plot 3. Plot 3 is twisted compared with the other plots. The house is twisted round and the others are roughly on the same orientation. So if it was twisted round and maybe a bit more space given to the front of that plot, then that might solve the overlooking issue if the windows are on the back of the house rather than the side. There's also a kind of rather suspect space on the western side of the site, which looks like it could accommodate another house. And I'm just wondering whether the applicant is harbouring intentions to apply for an additional house on that area currently occupied by just 2 visitor parking spaces. It's a large area there. I'm just wondering what the space is for. It looks like another house could go there. So it looks like there could be plenty of space on the site just by shifting houses around a bit, shifting plot 4 towards plot 5, twisting 3 round so it's the same rough orientation to the other plots. Not wanting to do the architect's job for him, but just a possibility to address these objections. Thank you.
My understanding is that this is where a lot of the biodiversity net gain is coming from, but also, of course, we're focusing on, quite rightly, the houses that are closest. But if we were to move houses around, we would find there are more properties on the other side, and they're close as well. So it's, you know, I mean, we aren't really able to redesign it, I think.
I come back on that. Well, I think we could ask. I'm not saying that we should redesign it. I'm just saying that there looks like there's plenty of space to move things around a little bit in order to reorientate that house so that it doesn't provide these overlooking windows as has been objected to. I don't think it would impact the houses on the other street particularly at all.
Councillor Carnac is the next person. Senior Paul.
Yeah, thank you. I note there is mention of a change to bin storage, but I'd like to have an explanation about how the bin storage is going to be managed, because presumably twice or once a fortnight on Chesfield Road there could be 16 bins sitting out there, which seems you know, I just think that needs managing in some way, from there being 4 bins out to being 4 times that number because of this, and how are bins going to be collected and how is waste going to be stored?
I think Christine could probably explain this because I think it's somewhere in the background papers. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I've looked at this, but Christine, could you find it for us? Bear with us.
Thank you, Chair. So this swept path analysis was submitted during the course of the application at the request of KCC Highways, which shows a refuse vehicle safely accessing and exiting the site, and on that basis, KCC Highways raised no objections, subject to it being secured by an appropriate planning condition. Thank you.
Oh, we've got that condition.
It's one of the drawings, yeah, that's secured.
Councillor Prentice.
Thank you, Chair. My point was similar to Councillor Bothwell's, and I don't have any particular issues with this planning application overall. I think it all comes down to the positioning of plot 3. I just wondered, and for me it's not a deal breaker, but I wondered if an alternative positioning of that plot had been considered at some point in the application process, and whether that would help the sort of the orientation of it would help it sit better in the overall plan. As I say, it's not something for me that I am particularly concerned about. But it may, I think, address some of our public speakers' concerns that we've heard tonight, which I think would be good to address if we can. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just have a couple of bits of clarification, really, and a comment to make? When it comes to the bin lorries driving down there, I mean, I don't know legally, it's probably not a planning issue as well. I mean, I'm not sure whether legally they're allowed to drive down a drive, because I'm assuming this would be a private drive, so who becomes liable if something gets damaged, i.e. the road can't take the weight, there's not enough turning. I mean, I've got quite a large van and I'd be concerned of turning in that small cone, but I don't think it's KCC's authority to say, well, the bin men can get down there, so we're going to drive dust lorry down there. I don't know where we stand legally on that one. Also, can you clarify that Cherry Gardens isn't in a conservation area? I'm assuming the way you're speaking about the trees and stuff, that it kind of finishes on that corner. And on a practical note, doing quite a few hedges in my years of my job, when it comes to the neighbouring residents, I'm assuming they're doing it now, that the trees are pruned by them rather than the new site owners, because it's going to be either they go round and do it or they have contractors to do it, and if there are conifers, once they grow too thick, they're going to be really hard to prune and they'll just die anyway. So that's what they'll just end up doing. Thank you, Chair.
Where am I? Councillor Buttman. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of things, really. In the report, it says about associated car barns. So does this mean that they're not allowed to have garage doors? And that would be if they did have a garage door, they'd have to apply for permission for those? Because I know sometimes these barns are not allowed doors due to it then becoming another route. It could then be used as storage rather than a garage as such. And then just about the landscaping plan, really, because I think that spoke about biodiversity, so I would assume it would be more where it says mixed grass and shrub planting, it would be more biodiverse rather than sort of amenity planting. And then finally, just going back to those conifers, I mean, if the conifers were part of this overall landscaping plan, could there be a planning condition on a minimum height that they're kept to, or would that have to go in through a TPO as well? Thanks.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I have agreements with a few of my fellow councillors about potentially rearranging the plot. These are 5 houses to add to our supply, 4 more than the one that's there, and it'd be a shame to see that lost, but it would also be a shame to potentially lose those trees. So now Councillor Bothwell's made the point about potentially deferring this back to the applicant for a potential redrawing. Can that be officially proposed? Can we have a vote on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, the responsibility of the Planning Committee is to make a decision on the application in front of you. So that's what you have to do today. Obviously, the recommendation is for approval, with the distances being sufficient between properties as far as offices are concerned. So we're very much recommending approval. If you have concerns with the application, we could look at those, and ultimately, if they were so significant and evidenced, then you might move towards a refusal of the application. That's an option available to you, certainly not a recommendation of the officers. In terms of deferral, you couldn't defer for the applicant to revise the drawings, but you could defer if there's additional information that you required, but it couldn't be to ask for a change, because the role of the planning committee isn't to design schemes, it's to decide whether the scheme put in front of them is acceptable or not. So I would say for that, the reason you've given wouldn't be one that you could defer the application for reasonably.
I think given the advice on this one, we are in a position where if it's a sustainable development, which in every way apart from the neighbours' concerns about the hedging, this appears to be, we are governed by being in presumption. We are informed that we can't ask the applicant to change their plans. They might choose to do that, but that we can't ask them. Also, in terms of planning rules and regulations and custom and practice and so on, these houses are not too close. Of course, trees are a good idea. It seems we can't exactly TPO or condition these trees because in any case, as Councillor Naomi Smith said, many people may not want them and we don't know who's going to live in these houses. So given they're not TPOable anyway, the thing we've got is that there is a landscape environment management plan to be put in, and we could write an informative, and somebody might need to think about how they want it worded, about making sure that the boundaries have sufficient tree cover in that landscape environment.
Encouraging that.
Yeah. So the most we can do is encourage it. I mean, for me, the agent appeared to be saying they did want boundary cover. So I thought that I think an informative would be probably sufficient. But I'm just trying to sum up where we are. I don't think we can actually, work up a new condition from the advice that we've received. Sorry, Councillor Prentice, you wanted to come back in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, I think that was helpful, a helpful sort of summary. I trust actually that the applicant would bear all those things that you mentioned in mind, and I would strongly propose an informative around landscape management. I propose we move to the vote.
I'm just wondering, do we need to have more wording on that? Do we need more detail?
Well, yes, to encourage the retention of trees where possible.
On the boundaries.
Yeah, to encourage retention of trees on the boundary.
Talking about encouraging trees on the boundaries of plot 3.
Yeah.
For the benefit of. Sorry, we'll come to you. I'm just trying to get this wording. I think that's how.
In the spirit of good neighbourliness.
Yeah, in the spirit of good neighbourliness or something to that effect. Does that sound okay? We'll work that up. Councillor Thomas, do come back in.
I was just working on the boundary trees. I'm wondering if we can put a time condition on this. I don't suppose we can. Because I do know of other sites where they put trees in there on industrial sites. We've had one come through quite well about 5 or 6 years ago, and then after 5 years they removed the trees and put a car park in. It was because after 5 years the condition does no longer remains on the conditions of the trees. So if they're dead, they don't have to replace them after 5 years. But are we in the same position with this?
5 years is a standard condition. Yeah, so we're right on that one. And I think this informative is strongest we can, but we have got, you know, the agent applicant saying that they are mindful of this issue. So to that extent, oh, sorry, you wanted to come back in, Councillor Dan Smith.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Perhaps wrapping this boundary in with the biodiversity net gain, because the hedge is actually part of the greenery. So this is just a suggestion for the agent to take it away and consider, but it may be that if we're writing an informative, to suggest that in the informative for them to look at. It would be possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, obviously the agent has heard all these comments, and I think they are mindful of in general, they made that statement at the beginning. So obviously we're asking for that in an informative. We'll get the wording sorted, so in the interest of good neighbourliness. And I mean, I would have actually thought that, you know, plot 3 probably wants trees too, so, and screening, so it's probably a two-way process to sell that property anyway. So I will move the recommendation, which is section 101 grant, subject to legal agreement and safeguarding conditions. Councillor Prentice is the seconder for this. So can we move to a vote? Thank you, John.
Okay, that has carried 7 yes and 4 abstained.
Thank you very much, everybody. I don't know whether people who came just for this item would like to leave before we move on to the next one. Thank you. Sorry, everybody. just wanted to check where we were with councillors Carnac and Thomas, but they've left for this item. So we move on to application number CA 2500513, 17 Bleamview Road, Herne Bay, CT6 7RD. And if I can ask Ashley Gynes to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. So this application relates to 17 Bleamview Road in Herne Bay. The proposal is for a single-storey rear extension and front and rear dormers, and the application is at the committee, given that the applicant is a councillor. So just for context, that's the site location plan. And then these are the existing elevations with the proposed, showing the rear extension and the 2 dormers to the front and rear. And then again, this is the block plan showing the extent of the rear extension with the dormer on the top of the plot. There's been no public objections to the proposal, and in line with the officer's report, it is recommended for approval, subject to safeguarding conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have any we don't have any speakers on this item. This is here because obviously the applicant is a councillor, and I would like to propose the recommendation from the officer. Sorry? You're seconding it. Grant, subject to safeguarding conditions. We have 2 Smiths.
Seconded, sorry, yeah, both of us.
Dan
I think
Smith
I beat Naomi just.
And Dan Smith is seconding it. Can we move straight to the vote on this one? Is there any objection? Yeah, thank you.
That's carried unanimous.
Thank you. We now move on to, just a comment on application number CA 2401925, Flat 5 Truscott House, 27 Queens Road, Whitstable, CT5 2JE. This item has been withdrawn. There's further work being done on this. Application number 9, application CA 2402301, Little Acre, Highstead, Chislet, CT3 4LX. Can I ask Ashley Kynes to introduce the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this application, this application relates to Little Acre in Highstead and Chislet. The proposal is for a 2-storey front and side extension, roof extension, and a single-storey rear extension. The previous committee members decided to do a site visit, and so the application is back before the committee. Just as a reminder, this is the location plan here. You can see the plot here with the garage to the right. These are the existing at the top of the pictures here, with the proposed at the bottom. And again, these are the side elevations, existing and proposed. And this is just some 3D imaging showing the front with the garages to the side and with the single-storey extension to the rear down in the corner. Again, this is the block plan. You can see the 2-storey side extension down to the right-hand side with the single-storey rear. And just in the neighbouring garden here, this is where there is an existing tree, which will be quite close to the rear extension. And just for some context, we have the front elevation, and towards the rear, this is where the 2-storey side extension will go. And again, this is where the single-storey rear extension will be. And you can see the tree. So since the site visit, the plans have been amended to include pad foundations, and also there will be a condition included in the report securing mitigation measures for the construction of the extension to protect the roots of the tree. And then this is just some wider shots of the application site. And again, this is, you can see the front of the site here. And again, this is the neighbouring property with the tree behind. And again, this is a picture of the tree, which is of concern. So there will be mitigation measures to try and protect this tree as much as possible. And yeah, so subject to the report, it's recommended for approval, subject to safeguarding conditions. Thank you. Yep. Sorry, so just to explain in terms of the condition that will be included with mitigation measures to protect the tree. I'm just getting the wording. Yeah, so maybe easier. So this will be the condition. So you can see here, existing trees, shrubs, hedgerows identified for retention or in adjacent sites within the crown spread shall be protected in accordance with the recommended standards using protective fence. And then it goes on to be quite specific and such as the tree measures will remain throughout the period of construction. Protective fencing shall be erected before the works. At no time during the site works shall building materials, machinery, waste chemicals stored or piled be stored close to the roots. There shall be no change in the original soil level. No roots over 50 mil in diameter shall be cut. No buildings, roads or other engineering operations shall be constructed or carried out within the protective fenced area. And you can see the final couple of points there. Ground levels within the protective fenced area shall not be raised, and no trenches for underground services shall be commenced within the protective fenced area. It's also worth noting that with the single-storey rear extension, that could be achieved under permitted development. The only reason it's within the application is that the materials for the exterior are different to the existing dwelling. So it's just worth bearing that in mind, in that the extension could be done under permitted development with no protection for the tree. So with this condition, it does achieve a good level of protection for that tree going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Carnott, would you like to speak now?
I thought I was speaking after the public speakers.
So the public speakers are Carolyn Parry first. That's absolutely fine. I don't mind which order you speak in. Lynn Haddon is speaking first.
Is that on? Yeah. Okay. So first, I'd like to thank the 6 councillors that took part in the site visit. Thank you for taking the time to do that. At the last meeting, I highlighted various paragraphs of the NWPF that were relevant for your consideration. I'm not repeating myself, but I did specifically quote paragraphs 210 and 214. We also advised that Highstead is inside a conservation area and provided details of the tree at risk. And from the questions asked by the committee then, you appeared not to have heard from the planning officer on those matters. I'm delighted that he has actually mentioned the tree this evening. The site visit took place without us being informed, and since the 9th of June, we have been trying to find out a little bit of detail to make it possible for us to speak again this evening, but with no success. However, what we did discover is that the outcome has been discussed with the architect, but not with our ward councillor, despite repeated requests, and not with us, and that was as of Friday lunchtime last week. Our hamlet of 14 homes is a special place. It is entirely your responsibility to ensure any proposal you approve will make a positive contribution to local character and not damage the look of the area. Yet again, the original heritage statement, much like the earlier application, was incorrect. Dishonest is the word I would use, and talked of an invisible house that was only able to be seen from within the boundaries of the property itself. There are photographs which I hope are being shown. Mine are slightly different to the planning officers, taken from the road through Highstead, given to the planning officer in February. Little Acre was a farm cottage extended without planning and now seeking massive further development into a modern Whitstable seafront style property. It will be even more visible than what you see in these pictures and entirely out of keeping with the materials proposed. It is immediately adjacent to authentic properties built in 1720 and 1771 and the rest of the hamlet in the 1800s. Modification to the design, including relocation of the spice kitchen and protection of the tree through building process, were offered by the architect at the last meeting. We would urge you to ensure those modifications are made. This needs redesign to include not enabling the enormous development of the building per se, not building to the boundary of Walnut Tree Farm, and categorically requiring modification to the height. In our opinion, at the very least, you should be insisting on significant downsize and materials redesign to something more in keeping, imposing conditions to ensure that extraction from a spice kitchen doesn't result in noise and smell pollution for us as residents, and ensuring absolute protection of the tree. The plans could have included to locate the kitchen on the south and eastern aspects at the outset. The tree protection measures are not enough to allay our fears. They just don't need to build there. The residents of Highstead continue to have concerns about commercial connotation. The proposed roof height will take this building up by more than 1.5 metres. Why does this building need such an apex when modern building process enables significantly improved flat roofs? Are there plans for further development into the creative roof space in the future? We suspect that that is highly possible.
Could you wind up now? Thank you.
Yeah, last sentence. The MPPF requires you to protect and enhance our hamlet through careful planning management. Please, would you use your powers and enable that? Thank you. Do I press that?
Thank you. So we move to Caroline Parry now, please. Need the mic on. You okay?
I apologise if I repeat some of the things that Lynn has said. I appreciate you're very busy people. You have your personal lives, your work life, your councillor responsibilities. I get to address you for 3 minutes. You'll possibly deliberate over this for 5 to 10 minutes. Your decision will affect every minute of my life going forward. This is the second time that we're addressing this issue. I'm very confused and I'd like to put some pertinent points forward for you to consider. To recap and to reiterate, there are 14 houses in Highstead, farm workers' cottages originally, and 2 farmhouses. They've all been extended over time with permitted development and full planning consent, except for Little Acre, the house in question. This has been developed probably tenfold from its original footprint. I don't understand where more permitted development now comes in that's being mentioned tonight. This house has been developed without any planning consent and is an enormous 6-bedroomed, 4-bathroomed property. It is overdeveloped already. So they got away with it. But why is it being considered? Why are the officers recommending it? At the last meeting, I requested a site visit so that you could see it from our perspective. Why was the ward councillor not informed? Why was the tree officer not present as agreed? I prepared for this meeting. Lynn didn't know about it. I had prepared large sheets of wood to be erected so you could see the overbearing effect that this house will have on my property, the loss of light in one of my rooms. But the officer didn't manage to liaise with us even after this, but he did liaise with the developer's agent, And there were some new plans for this walnut tree. My house is 300 years old. This tree is 100 years old. I asked an architect about this pile and slab that you can do. It doesn't work 2 metres from the trunk of a tree. The tree will be killed if the foundation is built there. We had 1 week's notice of this meeting. I went to several tree surveyors. Of course, none are available to give you a proper report. Highstead is a quintessential English Kentish hamlet. Why allow development? An 8-bedroomed, 8-bathroom small hotel with a commercial kitchen that is going to belch the pungent fumes from this kitchen directly, this will be built directly on the boundary of my house and belch them into my property. Why a pitched roof? As Lynn has said, more bedrooms? Why kill a 100-year-old walnut tree? When we left the meeting, several of the residents were here and we left with hope. We felt you'd listen to us. We knew when you came to Highstead and witnessed this firsthand, you would see the enormous impact this overdevelopment is going to have on us. We're not NIMBYs at Highstead. I request that this is put back, that the site visit...
Could you wind up? Thank you.
The site visit is rescheduled, and the original conditions of the last meeting are adhered to. Treat us fairly, please. Please, could in that time when it is put back, pre-commencement conditions be put in place? Please, could I also ask for a recorded vote? Because I think if a tree like this is to be killed, it should be recorded who was asked to have this done. Because I spoke to an architect. This does not work.
Could you finish? It's over a minute over.
You are our elected representatives. This is the thin end of the wedge. If you won't vote in favour of this, we're going to be back here all the time.
Please, could you finish?
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carnac, would you like to come forward?
I'm going to stay here.
Oh, fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everybody knows I'm I'm speaking on behalf as a ward councillor, and then I'm going to go out. So pretend I'm over there. Okay. First, I am frustrated on behalf of the residents of Highstead that neither they nor I were notified of the site visit. Given that we were the ones who asked that the site was looked at, it really isn't good enough to say there was an administrative error. I hope the chair will ensure this doesn't happen again, please. It was hardly difficult to remember that there's one ward councillor in Reculver who called in the application. We're also still unclear as to whether the tree officer was in attendance as had been requested or whether the tree officer's been out to look at all. I'm therefore concerned that the members of the planning committee who attended the visit didn't go into Miss Haddon's back garden at April Cottage to see the impact that the increased roof height will have on the immediate area and the impact this will have on living conditions. The fact is that April Cottage will be overlooked, and we've heard from Ms Parry there as well about the impact on Walnut Tree Farmhouse. I remain concerned that Highstead is a rural area and a conservation area, and that this huge extension is totally out of keeping with the environment. In the conservation area assessment, it says Highstead contains 3 listed buildings: Highstead Farmhouse Grade 2, Walnut Tree Farmhouse Grade 2, and Thatched Cottages Grade 2. Other attractive buildings include Bay Tree and Whitehall Cottage, and there are 2 ponds, some good pasture and trees and hedgerows. The settlement is rather spoiled by insensitive additions, including Poacher's End, an enormous modern house with mono-pitched roofs built of concrete blocks and with picture windows that sit almost in the front garden of thatched cottages and dominate the road junction. Little Acre, which lies opposite, has poorly designed roofs and additions. I think this confirms that Little Acre was already out of keeping with the conservation in 1993, but allow these new plans, which are similar to permitting another Poacher's End type development, will fall well outside the conservation area assessment. I continue to be concerned about the overbearing nature of this large extension of the property and by the increase in the roof height by 1.4 metre. I'm pleased to see that there is now going to be a condition to protect the one remaining walnut tree. I think in 1993, when this conservation area assessment were done, there were probably still a number of them. But I really want to ask, in my absence, if the officer will explain what's happening to the spice kitchen now, and whether this also amounts to a root protection order, which is what I had requested, because I think if we're to protect this walnut tree, it needs to go considerably further than I think the condition is saying at the moment. Otherwise, as we've heard in a case already this evening, we're in a real risk of this walnut tree being killed. So yes, so root protection order, and also I'm guessing then that the plans for the spice kitchen need to be completely changed from being by the boundary wall with Walnut Tree Farm. I believe we should be very respectful and careful about preserving our rural identity and the conservation of our countryside hamlets and villages. Once lost, they are lost forever. There is significant history, heritage and archaeology in Highstead. To speak out when a development is overbearing and out of keeping is important. We need to protect what we can and to ensure that we don't cut corners and make administrative errors, and through those failings pass plans that are insensitive and more appropriate to an urban setting. And I very much point everyone again to that to the conservation area assessment, which specified in 1993 that Little Acre, which lies opposite, has poorly designed roofs and additions, and also pointed out Poacher's End. So please, can we really try to make sure that in 2025 we don't make the errors that have been made in the past? Thank you all very much.
Thank you. I think I want to open this up for discussion to see where people are. We have apologised for the fact that people weren't notified. It was just an error. It obviously wasn't intentional. So we have apologised. That's where we are so far. But there clearly are a lot of sensitive issues here. So I'd like to just find out where people are with this. So can I open it up? So Councillor Naomi Smith, then Councillor Dan Smith first.
Thank you, Chair. Are we, because we haven't gone with the correct process for the site visit, are we opening, I mean, we're basically opening ourselves up for a judicial review on this, possibly, because we haven't, you know, and so do we have to do the process again, is what I'm asking. And
thank you, Chair.
Answer.
Thank you, Chair. Well, a challenge is possible if the council hasn't followed the correct procedure. Whether a challenge would be successful on those grounds is a matter for the court. And so, yes, if courts will look at what procedure has been followed as to whether or not they're going to allow a decision. Whether or not you decide that a site visit is necessary is a matter for you.
Councillor Dan Smith.
Thank you very much. I believe the tree officer was mentioned, and I was at the site visit as well, you Chair. There wasn't a tree officer present at the time, so I would like the legal view on that as to whether it's over the tree issue in particular, whether it's a challengeable issue, because we didn't have a tree officer. I think there may have actually been a reason, but it would be helpful to clarify that if there was a reason. And if we now have a tree officer's view, then it would be helpful that that is also brought forward so it can be spoken about. Thank you.
Obviously, today we do have a tree officer's view, and we have quite a lot of lengthy comment on how that should be proceeded with, the drawings for the foundations. The architect agreed to change, to do whatever was required with the foundations. He was there. He offered to do whatever is required, and we've got all that. But you obviously can tell from all of this that there are differences of opinion on this matter. Well, there are. So we've got that now. What was the other question, Dan? Sorry.
I was just wondering if the lack of the tree officer at the time was an issue that could also, because it was agreed last time round that a tree officer, we tried to get the tree officer there. I think there was a reason why the tree officer was there. Perhaps you can help my recollection on why there wasn't one there, but we didn't have a tree officer there at the site visit when that was agreed. Thank you.
Is that challengeable? What would you like? Can you, yes, give us advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If I remember the debate correctly, councillors had asked for a tree officer to be there if possible. However, that wasn't in part of the tree officer's job description because they were a shared role. And I think that the councillors were informed that if a tree officer could come, they would. But they couldn't promise to get the tree officer there, but they certainly would get their thoughts and consult the tree officer. And of course, they have consulted the tree officer.
Thank you for that clarification.
Dan Smith, did you want to come back?
I think I'll let the others speak for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, we do have a tree officer now, but that isn't the person that we use for planning. And the person we buy in for planning, we share with Ashford, and we buy in on a case-by-case basis. So obviously it's not like having somebody we can simply say, now spend your day doing that. It's not going to be easy even if we ask for it again. My guess is, from what I've gathered, it's just the arrangement we do have on planning applications is buying someone in on a case-by-case basis. Let's move on. Councillor Thomas is the next person.
Thank you, Chair. Before I make a comment, I might as well propose we have another site visit and get this off the table and then move forward. Thank you, Chair.
Seconded, Chair.
Okay, well, just a minute. We've got Councillor Old. Would you like to come in on this? Because you already had your hand up, so...
Not on this point, but on a
Okay.
separate point.
Yeah, we'll just have your point because you... No, I'm not allowed to. Apparently, I'm not able to take your comments now. Sorry. Apparently, we now only speak about the site visit and vote on it. Just hold on 1 second.
Thank you, Chair. Because we now have a motion regarding a site visit, and that has been seconded, the following debate will be simply on the site visit today. So a decision that you make today regarding a site visit. Now, that decision is nothing to do with the decision that you made last time about the site visit. It is not a rerun. It's if you have now not enough information in front of you regarding, in order to make a decision and want to have a site visit today. Thank you.
Councillor Prentice, only on the site visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was unable to make the site visit when it was first organised. I feel I don't, as a result, and that's clearly my fault for not being able to make that date. As a result, I feel I don't have enough information. I feel I don't have enough information on other aspects, which I can't talk about at the moment. But I would probably reluctantly, slightly frustratingly, be in favour of a site visit, simply to reacquaint myself with this application face to face, or rather in person, should I say. But it's not a position I'm happy to be in, bearing in mind that we've already had one organised. So very reluctantly actually, but I'd be interested in others' views on that.
Councillor Old, then Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Could we just clarify the reason for a site visit? Because it was in the officer's report that this would have been allowed under permitted development, except for the materials that were being used. Am I correct in that, first of all?
Thank you. The rear extension would be, if it was the same materials as the existing house, they could build that rear extension, which is going to be closest to the tree. So if it wasn't approved and the application was withdrawn, they could put the rear extension up with those dimensions with no permission.
Thank you. So the rear extension could go ahead. The only issue that we're being considered as far as the rear extension and the impact that might have on the tree is about the materials that are being used. So do we really need a site visit for that?
It is very difficult for those of us who went to the site visit. I mean, I can remember the site visit extremely well. We looked at all these issues. So, I can't clarify why other people would want to do it. So that's my position on it. Dan Smith. Oh no, sorry, it was Councillor Thomas first, wasn't it? And then you, sorry.
I think the idea of having a second site visit is because we've kind of mucked up on the first site visit, not asking the residents to have their say. And technically, we've actually cocked up even more, because technically they're not allowed to speak on this application now, because they've spoken twice on this application. So therefore, they've used up all their rights to speak. So if this comes to if this comes again to committee and the site visit, they're not able to speak. So we have really mucked this one up, I'm afraid. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Thomas, I happen to agree with you, because we have actually now had the speakers again today, and the problem is that if they therefore have used the right to speak twice, it's discretionary anywhere at a site visit, but there isn't an opportunity to do so. And equally, they wouldn't have been able to speak today had they spoken on the site visit. So there's all kinds of toings and froings that we're trying to deal with when deciding what we're going to get out of the site visit that we haven't heard from the representatives today, I would say. I'm not, hang on, there's other people who wish to speak. Oh, sorry, Councillor Dan Smith first, then Councillor Dixie.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think the one thing that obviously I was at the site visit too that I missed was the view. I think one of the speakers mentioned from April Cottage, where you're looking at it from that side to view the overlooking or the height of the building over their grounds. You could get a rough idea, but to actually see it from that view, so it's going to be messy, because obviously the owner of that property was one of the speakers. So, but I think that I would, again, like Councillor Prentice, would be very reluctantly have to go again.
Whereas we're now getting into a debate about the site visit, and we did have that conversation on the site. So I just feel now we're straying away from, we need to take a vote on this, I think. But Councillor Dixie, please come in on this one.
As I understand it, we've been advised by legal that if we approve this application, we could be open to judicial review. If that's correct, I think we should have another site visit to avoid the possibility of judicial review, because we've had fairly difficult times with those in the past.
Chair.
Yes, Kath, I will ask you to give an opinion on this again.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry if I misled you. I was asked if the fact that there was a procedural that we went wrong with the procedure could be a reason for a challenge, and yes, that could be a reason for a challenge. Might not be successful, but it could be. But members are now considering whether to go on a site visit or not. If members decide they want to, they have to have reasons. If members decide that they don't want to, then they don't want to. And then they continue to the vote on the actual application. And we would then be in the realms of, well, we didn't get that right, but members have thought that we don't want another site visit.
Naomi Smith.
Thank you, Chair. As I think I'm trying to understand all of this. So, another site visit. None of the residents were able to speak at another site visit. So those of us that have most of us did attend a site visit, and looked at the single story extent. It's a single story extension there, and then the extensions around the side. I mean, it is a weird. I think we should move to a vote on whether we have a site visit or not, and let's get that vote, and then go on to do what we need to do next. Thank you.
So, members, can we move to a vote on whether or not we do another site visit? Thank you.
Okay, that's carried 5 in favour, 4 against, 1 abstained.
What we need now are the reasons for the site visit, so we're clear what we're going there to do, please. David Thomas, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've got the demo. I wanted to hear what the neighbours were saying, wanted to put their points across on the site visit. Thank you.
I think that the wording of the Constitution is such that at Chair's discretion we could allow people to speak. We have got a precedent where, because of a different kind of set of difficulties and problems, we let a couple of people speak for a third time. What I need to be very clear with all of you about, and in fact, of course, the people who will be speaking, who are in the room, is how narrow the possibility, what a narrow range of topics can be covered in that site visit. It is not an opportunity to debate the entire proposition. And so I'm just going to ask Simon Thomas to explain that so that we're really, really clear before we move on to discuss that in more detail, because we have to have some reasons, specific reasons about this application, not about the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, site visit is an informal meeting. It's not formal at all. It's not constituted. It's not, it's constituted, but it's not formal in the sense of a planning committee meeting. The purpose of the site visit would be for members to gain more information. So when the speakers are speaking, they're confined to talking about points of interest on the site rather than debating the merits. And it would be inappropriate for a debate to happen on the merits of the application of the site visit when you might have 2 or 3, 4 or 5, whatever number of councillors turning up. You've got no legal support. You know, it is not a public meeting in that sense. It's purely an information gathering exercise. And consequently, as I say, the neighbours, objectors' role will be simply to point out facts on the site, which they are obviously entitled to do. I would say, you know, I mean, in terms of this, you know, your position next, then, you know, you have to have a reason to want to go to the site. And I think, you know, my understanding from the debate is that the concern was about the single-storey extension, which in fact would be permitted development if it was finished in a different material. So there really is nothing I can see that you need to look at. Entirely your decision whether you think you do, but from the debate I can't see that there is anything else that needs to be viewed on site.
I mean, we have heard obviously from Councillor Prentice that he didn't manage to get to the site visit, and obviously we'll get to this one. We have heard from Councillor Dan Smith, who said he couldn't remember the view from April Cottage, although we were standing right in front of it.
I beg your pardon, Chair. I stand correct.
So those are reasons.
If I could correct you there, it wasn't that I couldn't remember the view from April Cottage. It was that we did not stand in the grounds of April Cottage to see the view because we didn't have access to it because of the residents.
We didn't see the view from April Cottage. Okay, fine. Well, that's a reason for going. I was saying both of those are reasons for going, whichever way around I heard you, Dan, whether I didn't hear you correctly or not. They are reasons for going.
Well, not to look at private views.
We do honestly have to articulate why we want to go back. I do think that, Councillor Thomas, did you want to come in? You want to clarify? I've clarified that we could use Chair's discretion to allow the neighbours to speak, but it's a very limited opportunity. And that you said that it was your point was that it was about listening to them. I understand that on a human level, but obviously that's not a reason to do with the actual application. And we do need some reasons to the actual application that we're going to look into, and for the officer to plan for this as well. Please.
It keeps coming back to the permitted development. This house has been extended. I actually don't understand how this can be allowed on permitted development. I said it at the site visit, and it's if it hasn't been extended at all, are you basically saying to me that if that area was permitted development, they could have permitted development on that, but they'd have to build that first, then put another application to do the loft space and all the other alterations? Or are we saying permitted development, when it's convenient, seems to be added and added and added. And to me, where does it stop? Or are you saying to me this house has never been extended before? It's built as it was, which then would allow permitted development. But as I've looked at the property, it has been extended, so I don't really know where the permitted development part comes in. Thank you, Chair.
Let me see if we can get this point clearer. I think Ashley will be able to give you a bit of an explanation here.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so from looking at the plans, obviously it's clear that the property has been extended over a number of different years, but from looking at the plans, it seems that that single-storey extension is on the rear of the property, which would be the existing core of the house. So that's what I was referring to when I was saying that it would be permitted development. So that's what I was going to from the plans, that it was going to the rear of the property, which would be the existing core element of the house.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. Are you okay?
Sorry, Chair, it does or doesn't?
Does.
Okay, it doesn't to me. If I've got a house and I build another size house in front of it, surely I've used up all my permitted development rights. I can't then, I haven't done anything on the back of the property, so I've got permitted development rights. If it's me, but I just don't get it. Sorry.
In a way, it's a bit, can I say, I do think it's a bit of a moot point, because what we know and what neighbours have described is that this house has been extended without planning permission already, but not on that side. And it's on the original house. But I actually think it's a moot point, because the point about this is the damage to the tree, not whether or not it's permitted development. And, you know, for what it's worth, we had a discussion about an improvement in the outside materials would be good. You know, that it's not been, you know, it could do with a makeover kind of thing. You know, we did discuss that, about the materials and the fact that that could be quite important, that they were improved. But I think it's a moot point, and I don't think it's the reason for us going there. So I just think we have to clarify for this decision. We've made a decision to go for the site visit. We just have to make a note, and particularly for the officer, what is it we're going to look at and what has to be looked into, please. Thank you, Councillor Prentice.
A reason to go for me, and I know I'm speaking quite selfishly here, is that I obviously wasn't able to go to the original visit. Is it simply so that all councillors can determine issues that need to be looked at on a site visit for whatever reason? I mean, I don't know how many of the committee were able to make the original visit because I wasn't there, but if it means that all councillors on the committee can then determine issues, if that's a sort of a specific reason, then I propose that reason as well.
Simon,
and I don't know if it is or not, but
okay. I think that what we're going to say is that we need to look at the tree, look at the issue about the foundation, or the issue about where that foundation goes, and well, that's what people are saying, and examine the appearance of the extension and that of the house from the perspective of what we've heard today, which is maybe not the perspective we looked at, because I'm not sure, but I think we did. But that's what I'm thinking. We need to review the issues that are on the table, basically. Councillor Smith, Dan Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I also think Councillor Thomas's point about the permitted development issue, that the extension, as I recall it, that's going over the tree, area. The small end of it, if you like, was the bit that connected to the old original part of the building. The larger expanse of the side was to a part of an extension that has already been put on the property. So, which when you get it done between two bits of the building, where one of them was already an extension, I'm not quite sure what the position is there, but it might be worth looking at that and clarifying that point if the officer could help us with that as well. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I've got my... Let me just check out whether we've got enough of a reason here. Fine. So the decision is to go for the, the decision is to go for the vote on the site visit now for the...
We've done it.
Oh, we've done it, have we? Did we? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting confused now. Apologies, everybody. We seem to be going round in circles, but that could be my fault, so I'm sorry. Okay, so we've made a decision to go for the site visit. Did you want to make another comment?
I just want to make sure that all the relevant parties are invited to this site visit. The ward councillor, thank you, the ward councillor is invited. And if we can get the tree officer from wherever, I think that would be a bonus. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can guarantee that will all happen. It was just an error. It was nobody intended not to. It was just one of those things. I mean, we realised at the time, but there was a lot of us there, and we went ahead and had a look at the site. But we'll go again. Ashley, are you okay with all of that? Yep. Fine. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. Yeah, go on.
It's not on this application to be. Have you finished with this application? I don't want to interrupt. I've almost got a question on any other business, but there is not on the agenda. Thank you.
I have finished with that item, and my idea now is just to go to the planning appeals report. Was it a comment on that? No, it's a comment on the because I was walking in when you mentioned about application 8, flat 5, Trustcott. Did you mention why that was pulled? Yeah. We identified some issues on that site, you might remember. It was then quite complex to follow them up, you know, to do with the owner not being there or the agent not being there and so on and so forth. And so we are still pursuing some of the queries that were raised on that site and bringing them to a conclusion as we speak. The details of that, I think we wouldn't be talking about right now because it's not concluded, so we wouldn't want to make presumptions or comment as to where we've got to. But just suffice it to say that, you know, there are issues we raised, and the officer's actually doing everything he can to bring it to a satisfactory conclusion. And we'll have it back here when it comes to that conclusion. Is that okay? Yeah, that's fine. I just missed it. Thank you. Yeah, no, that was all. It's just more complicated than we perhaps thought. So we can move on to the planning appeals report. Does anybody have any queries? Did you want to comment? If not, then can we note by general assent, please? Thank you. And we've got no urgent business to be dealt with in public, and no business which falls under exempt provisions. The date of the next meeting is Tuesday, the 8th of July. Thank you very much, everybody. Meeting concluded.